Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2008 found footage film Lake Mungo, and this review goes out to your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, who is a longtime subscriber, very long time subscriber of my channel, and has become a very good friend of mine through the channel. So this one's for you, Uncle Pete. It's pretty much through requests that people can really only get me to watch found footage films, or if they end up being screeners that I get through Shudder, because I'm not big into found footage. That said, good pick, Uncle Pete. I actually enjoyed this film. I thought it was pretty good. One of the things that really helped it for me is having it set up in like a documentary style, because it feels realistic. It feels very much like a documentary, and I really do like documentaries. So it kind of took the found footage style that I'm typically not down with and morphed it into something that I'm definitely down with, so it really helped me out. And I think it's actually a really good found footage film. All right, getting into it. Written and directed by Joel Anderson. Apparently, Anderson has said that he made the film to be about grief, which is very apparent in the film. It is like front and center. That's not subtext. Also, a look at the role of technology in our lives when it comes to memories and experiences, which you can obviously see that at play in the film as well. And it's kind of how the memories and experiences through technology tie into grieving. And actually how within this film there's catharsis and closure that ends up coming about because of those things, because of the footage that ends up being found. Obviously other things come up that are more concerning, which I'll talk about as I go through my review, but it does also help with the process. The script didn't include any dialogue, apparently, much like Blair Witch Project. You know, it's not super uncommon for found footage films to not have any actual written dialogue, because they need things to feel like supernatural. So like I get that, not supernatural, but supernatural, 2 words. Thought I should clarify. I get it, but sometimes it ends up causing problems because a lot of the times in those instances when, you know, people are just kind of ad-libbing, it ends up getting to a state of feeling really drawn out, and the interactions don't feel as concise as they should be necessarily for if they're scripted. But I think they did a pretty good job in this one. So really good acting, handled it quite well. A lot of good technical stuff, but something I'll mention at the very end of the review that I didn't like from a technical standpoint. Pretty small. The creepy pictures and voiceover saying something bad will happen set a very strong tone for the film, and the music that was used really did enhance that. And one of the things is it's a pretty restrained score for the film, which I'm a big-time fan of. I don't like scores that beat you over the head. I talk about this all the time in my reviews. So the fact that it's a more restrained score and they're not like screaming at you during times of like dread and creepiness and stuff like that is pretty wonderful. So the little bits that they use to great effect. It really does enhance scenes, and especially in the beginning where you're seeing all those creepy photos, and that quote, who we find out is from Alice much later in the film. And I love that it kind of like ties back in. And when you're first hearing it, it's grabbing you and setting some intrigue with that quote, because you're like, oh, where's this going? And then the second time you hear it, it ties you into the context of it. And that makes you think back, and you're like, oh, okay, I get this now. So it's well done in that sense. The telling of the disappearance of Alice Palmer introduces an intriguing mystery to start things out. And that's the big thing, especially with found footage films. A lot of the times, they don't hook you in immediately, and the fact that this is like a documentary style, they're able to hook you in immediately by setting up the mystery of Alice's disappearance and then her body being found and everything along the way. Whereas with other found footage films, you're just playing like footage a lot of the times, and it takes a while to get somewhere. So this one had a pretty big advantage in that sense. I wonder, and I think this is accurate, I really do think the choice of the name Palmer was intentional, because Laura Palmer was found dead by the side of a lake in the show Twin Peaks. And Laura Palmer also had a lot of secrets that ended up being revealed as time went on. And I think it's been some years since I last watched Twin Peaks, which I really do need to do a watch through again. But I think she also was kind of having feelings like the end of her life was coming as well. So I feel like a lot was kind of taken from Twin Peaks in what happened with Alice, and just kind of like the overall feel of that character. And that's why I think that the choice of the last name Palmer was super intentional here. As soon as the family starts talking about noises in the house a week after Alice's body is found, you know it's going to end up having some sort of supernatural twist that they aim for. The good thing about that, though, is it doesn't stay that way. They throw in a bunch of twists and turns with it, where you're like, oh, we're going a supernatural route, there's a haunting. And at first you think, you know, oh, it's a benevolent spirit, it's Alice coming back to, like, check in with the family. And then with, like, the bruises that were on Matthew, you started thinking, oh, well, maybe now there's a demonic force here instead, or in addition, because there's also the moment where Alice is warning her father because he comes into the bedroom and he sees her, you know, her ghost, and then she starts running at him and yelling to get out. And it seems more like when that's told that it's like a warning, like you need to get out of here. So you start thinking down that path. Then you're introduced to the whole thing going on with the photos and the video being faked by Matthew to make it look like Alice is there, to kind of like, what I assume was going on there is that he was trying to, you know, give hope to the family, like keep Alice alive in some way, shape, or form that kind of comforted the family somewhat. It, you know, it obviously didn't hit everyone that way, but that's what I kind of thought he was trying to do. And then it gets into the whole thing with the neighbors and the sex tape, and it's just like, it's a crazy ride, and it's good that at any point you don't fully know where it's going until it ends. So, going to continue on here. All the ways the family members talking about coping with their loss does increase the realism. You really do feel like they're real characters. You really do feel like they've been going through grief, that this did happen. So that, like I said, it speaks to the acting. The acting is really well done in this. Character of Russell, the father, when he's recounting seeing Alice's ghost in her room and it coming after him, yelling at him to get out, does feel like a larger warning. I did like that moment. It did really start to make me think there's something bad, like another spirit, like a demonic spirit going on. That in conjunction with what I was talking about before, the bruises that ended up showing up on Matthew. The introduction of okay, I already talked about that. The photos with Alice appearing to be in them ups the intrigue a notch. Now, obviously, we end up finding out that this was all faked much later, which was a cool twist. That was a really good reveal to it. And I kind of saw it coming in the moment where you had this other couple who brought forward photos or video footage and were saying that it looked like Alice was there, and it was really just Matthew in Alice's coat. And then that's when everything's... Like, as soon as that scene happened, I was like, there's something fishy, there's something else going on here, and it's involving Matthew. Then they tell you kind of immediately after that. So it's good that you don't start feeling that it's fishy first and have that maintained for quite a while, and then they reveal it. Like, as soon as things feel fishy, they're kind of like, okay, we're revealing it right now. Because they have a bunch of other twists and turns coming as well, which are good. When the idea of the seance comes up, I am thinking that many viewers just started shaking their heads. Just being like, do not do the seance. This is how we get demonic forces. This is how we bring something into the house that nobody wants to deal with. But us viewers, you know, we want to see it too. But so it's that conflicted feeling, because you also feel kind of close to this family. And that's another thing, is how real it feels. The fact that it's documentary style and the performances that are put out makes you feel for these individuals. It makes you feel very tied to these individuals. So they did a good job with that. The film does start to stagnate when they just keep talking about more and more of these instances of Alice's ghost showing up in the photos and videos. They kind of give a lot of accounts of that happening. And at that moment, it feels like the movie gets stuck. Like it's kind of running in place. Thankfully, that doesn't go on too long, but it definitely goes on too long, in my opinion. I think some of that should have been cut down, and then this film would have been very tight. The pacing would have been really good. As it is, the pacing's good, but that little portion in there, well, bigger than little, like that segment there just really started to bog down the film, and that's when you start to like lose a little bit of interest. So they needed to tighten that up a little bit. As soon as the video of Matthew and Alice's jacket happens, I immediately knew something was up. Yep. It is messed up that Matthew manufactured Alice's ghost in the photos and videos, but it does seem like it's his way to kind of keep her alive, and I think that he really wanted to keep his parents' hopes up. I think he just... It's not that he didn't want closure. It's that this was his way of grieving. Like, he could not get used to the fact that she wasn't there. So for himself, and I think he thought maybe to some degree for his parents, he would keep her alive some way. And then that would feel like to him that he doesn't need to accept that she's gone, that he doesn't need to have that final closure and move on with his life. He can still act to some degree like she's still there. Like, he's, that's still his sister who's alive and well. Unbelievably creepy when the neighbor spotted in the house in that fake ghost footage, when the mom goes back and watches it and notices there's another shadow, and like, oh, that's the neighbor who was in our house creeping around. That moment, I thought they were going to go some sort of route of like the neighbor having murdered her, and this is like a serial killer thing or something like that, which that would have been really cool. But I'm still fine with the way that they took it. But that whole intrigue with like the sex tape and her, that the threesome that she was forced into with, well, we don't know, but seems like maybe she was forced into with the couple next door, was like a crazy, shocking twist when it was thrown in there. And I really enjoyed that. And that's the thing, like, they kept these twists, these interesting tidbits coming, and they did them at really good intervals to keep you engaged with the film. Alice having seen Ray the medium before she died is definitely odd, and the fact that he didn't say anything to the family it does seem very fishy to me. So it ends up being a thing where I guess it was kind of like a client privilege type thing, like he didn't want to say anything because she came to him as a client or something. But I definitely think like he made the wrong decision. He should have said something to the family when they hired him. So the fact that he held that information back made me start to think that maybe he was involved somehow in something bad, but that ended up not happening, and that was fine. That was fine. But this is the thing, like, whether it's intentional or not, this film does create some red herrings like that, and that just makes it better for when they're actually revealing what their intended purpose is. The video of Alice burying something at Lake Mungo is that kind of next step of intrigue. That's another one of those breadcrumbs that's being laid down as you're going along, which I really did enjoy. I like bringing the quote from the beginning back because now you have the context of it. I basically already talked about that, but at that point it hits you in a totally different way, and that's why it's really cool, because you kind of hear it differently. Like in the beginning you're hearing it as, oh, we're, hearing about things to come. And then at that point, you are hearing about what Alice was saying about things to come, but it's letting you know everything that happened in the past up to that point. So it's totally different context for you. The phone footage and how Alice looked is a pretty haunting thing that they nailed down there. The footage at Lake Mungo, where it's like that kind of like quick shot that like her face looked all messed up, like she was already dead and partially bloated. And when the father says that that's how she looked when he identified her body, like, that's creepy. And it's not just the story. Like, the story ends up enhancing it, but just the image and showing, like, the side-by-side as they kind of do. Well, it's not like side-by-side. They show the video footage and then they show the photo of her dead. It's, like, pretty creepy, pretty haunting. The idea of Alice having recorded her future on the phone does fit with the story. I do think that's interesting. It kind of fits with the whole thing that they were saying, where they think that she was basically getting visions of her demise. Like, she was seeing visions of her future and beyond. And that's where they also then tie in the kind of like hypnosis dream state thing that she was doing with Ray, and then her mother ends up doing, and those intersect. So it's like she was having memories from before it was happening. Like, she was having memories from actually dying and then having memories from being a ghost. And it was like projecting forward. And then at that point, she's already linked up with her mother, who's also in the future doing the same thing. And they're they end up being in the same room. Like, she sees her and then she sees her leave. It's very interesting. It's cool that they did it that way. So it's kind of like messing with time in a way as well. The family starting to get closure does feel good, because with how deep into the story you end up getting, you actually really do care about them, and you hope that they get that closure. Like I was saying, it's done in such a way that they feel real and you feel for them. So that's very, very good. So in the end, this is my question to everyone. Is it trying to say in the end, when it kind of like has a picture of the family and then it starts zooming into the front door, like the front glass door, is it trying to say that Alice is still there, that her ghost is still there? I think yes, because you also look back to her like hypnosis session with Ray where she was saying that she was seeing them leave. So I think that was kind of her future memory of the ghost being in the house and saying they've all left and, you know, I'm here alone as a ghost. What are your thoughts? Go ahead and put it in the comments. The film does present very convincingly as a documentary. I do like that they played it that way. It was a smart choice, and like I said, it really helps the found footage aspect a lot. The interviews, for the most part, are nailed down pretty well, but there was one person, and I forget who it was. They weren't in it, but a bit in the beginning. The audio on their interview wasn't great because there were moments where they were blowing out the audio, and that's not good. So there was a little bit of like a consistency issue with the actual filmmaking there, but that is pretty minor because, like I said, it's not throughout the film. It's just a little bit, and it's with one person who was interviewed who doesn't go throughout the film, so it's not as big of a deal, but it is a problem. Pacing is pretty good because they methodically present new developments at good intervals. And I kind of wrote them down. It's the disappearance, the body being found, the apparition of Alice, the bruises on Matthew, then the photos of her being found, then the video footage of her being found, like her ghost, the body confirmation where they exhume her body and then confirm that that was actually her, bringing in the medium, doing the seance. You find out about Matthew faking the videos and the tape, then the sex tape reveal, all that stuff. Then Alice seeing Ray, that kind of like taking it back to him admitting that that's what was going on. Then the video of Alice burying something, then the phone footage, and then kind of closure. So they put them at really great intervals that just made the pacing really, really, really solid. This does really do a good job at exploring grief, in my opinion. I think it, you know, like I said, was the intent in the beginning of this video. It's supposed to really be looking at grief and how technology kind of ties into memories. It does. It does a really good job with that. You see a lot of different stages of grief that all the family members go through, and you see them each dealing with the grief in their own different way as well. And you can see moments where it kind of like caused friction. And this is all very realistic. You know, if you think about any time that there's been grief within a family setting, for you personally or anyone you know, not everyone is grieving the same. And it does kind of mess with family dynamics. And I think that they really do a good job of highlighting that in this film. And then also bringing in the technology and showing that that can either help or hinder how a person grieves. And then especially taking even further where Matthew's actually manufacturing things with technology to kind of make himself feel better and potentially his parents, but it ends up making his mother feel worse. So it's interesting. It's a good film. I really did enjoy it. So out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I feel like I got to give it a really good 4-star rating. I'm giving it 4 stars. I'm glad I finally saw this. It had been on my radar kind of to watch, but knowing it was found footage, it wasn't, I don't know when it would ever get bumped up my list. So thank you, Uncle Pete. You introduced me to a good found footage film. That's 2 this month because the other person, I forget who the other person was I did the review for Wreck. That was a really good found footage film. So maybe there are some other found footage films out there I should check out. Let me know in the comments. Of this caliber, please. But let me know in the comments your thoughts on Lake Mungo. Would love to hear them. I'm sure I will hear from your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and I welcome that, obviously, as always. Hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate that, and it is quick, painless, costs you no money. I appreciate it. Also, hit the notification bell button, because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which I feel like I'm doing a good amount. It's like at least 4 a week. And yeah, thanks so much for checking out this particular video. Until next time, keep it brutal.